Hello friends, welcome back to Locally Raised. Today I'm going to take a little change of pace from my usual gardening and canning and fermenting, and I'm just going to make a few things that are totally indulgent. So it is that time of year and I want to make some candies. I usually make candies around the holidays, and I also want to make one holiday cookie today. I hope I can make it through everything this morning that I want to make. I've got 4 things planned out and I've got some help with my kids until noon, so let's see what we can get done. We're going to make some Dutch Speculaas, which is a new cookie recipe for me. We're going to make some toffee, some peanut butter fudge, and some gourmet marshmallows. Let's get started. I'm going to start off making the Speculas cookies. This cookie dough needs an hour to cool in the fridge before you can cut out the cookies. And then once the cookies are cut out, it needs another hour in the freezer before baking. So I want to get this one started before my other candies so that I can still finish it by the end of the morning. You'll notice I'm spooning my flour here. This is my 3½ cups flour that goes into the recipe. It's so easy to over measure flour, to pack too much into a measuring cup. So it makes me impatient, but I've been trying lately to make myself spoon and level my flour if I'm not provided with a weight in the recipe. Typically, at this time of year, I've been making Springerle cookies for the past few years. Springerle cookies are a German cookie, and they're cut out using a beautifully intricate mold. And I mostly make them because I love how beautiful they are. The taste is only so-so to me. So this year I want to try a different cookie that also uses Springerle molds. See if I like the taste a little bit more. So these Dutch Speculaas are kind of a spice cookie, but it's a very firm dough, so I can still cut them out using my intricately designed Springerle molds, which I'll show you as soon as this dough is ready. Some salt. There are so many spices that go into this cookie. So here I'm adding cinnamon and ginger, nutmeg, cardamom, mace, ground white pepper, and finally cloves. I'll get those all blended together. Smells spicy. Next, I need to combine my wet ingredients. It calls for 1½ sticks of butter. Of course, I forgot to get my butter out of the fridge ahead of time. That should be softened to room temp. So I'm going to just cut this up into little pads and put them into the microwave. When I had forgotten in the past, I used to try putting a whole stick in the microwave. But if you've done it before, you know that the outside completely melts while the inside stays cold. So I've found that this is the best way for me to quickly soften butter. That's had 45 seconds. It's pretty nicely softened. I'm gonna get that softened butter into my mixer. And add a cup of packed dark brown sugar using my paddle attachment. You can see the mixture has that sort of fluffy texture. So now it's time for the dry ingredients and some water. That's half of the dry ingredients plus water. we'll get that mixed up and then add the other half. You can see that is a thick dough, which is what's going to allow it to hold the imprint of that mold with its intricate designs. Well, that came together pretty quickly. All right, I'm going to get this divided up into 3 discs, and I'm going to get those into the fridge. This needs to be chilled to be able to really hold all the details of those molds. Speculaas dough is in the fridge chilling for an hour, and I'm ready to move on to recipe 2, which is peanut butter fudge. This is a simple recipe. It's only 4 ingredients, but I'm pretty sure that's all you need to make something good. I'll be doubling this recipe, so I'm using a 9x13 pan rather than the square pan that the recipe calls for. And it just so happens that my pre-cut parchment paper is a little bigger than the pan, which is perfect. So I'm just gonna, at each corner, cut up towards the corner. Same over here. And give it a fold. Folding each side around the slits. There's that one. And this one. And then the longer pieces just go towards the inside at the corners. Perfect. Like I said, I'm doubling the recipe, so I'm going to use 2 cups of peanut butter. Normally I swear by natural peanut butter because I just love the flavor and the texture of peanuts and salt. But for candy making, having some of that vegetable oil in conventional peanut butter does help with the texture. I don't think I have quite enough for 2 cups here though. I think this falls just short. So I'm going to measure out this container and I'll supplement with my natural to finish it off. Measuring peanut butter is one of my least favorite kitchen tasks because it's just such a sticky mess. So I'm going to spray this so that it will release that peanut butter. I've used up my container of Jif peanut butter and I still need a little bit more, so I'm going to top off with my natural. If you do use natural peanut butter, make sure that the oil is fully incorporated. You don't want any oil separation when you're going to cook this fudge, or it will have trouble getting that smooth consistency that it needs. Second cup into the pot. And I'm gonna add in 4 sticks of butter. So much butter. This is just an enormous amount of goodness. And I'm gonna get that started melting. Butter's starting to melt down. Try to keep it on low heat and stir every now and then so nothing burns. While that's coming to a boil, I'm going to start to measure out my powdered sugar. I need 6 cups of powdered sugar. The recipe calls for sifting the powdered sugar. I don't quite have the patience for that, but I do know it's important that the sugar not have lumps in it. So I happen to have a bag that I just got yesterday and it's looking pretty fresh. As I pour it out, I'll just use a fork to fluff out any lumps. All of the butter and peanut butter are now incorporated and I'm just waiting for this to come to a boil. And my mixture is boiling. I'm gonna get this off the heat. And then stir in, oof, I put that on the hot burner, that could have been bad. All right, then I'm gonna stir in that sugar and vanilla. I'm going to use a whisk because it's really important that there be no lumps at this point. All right, I've got all those lumps worked out. I'm gonna get my vanilla in. Need a tablespoon and a teaspoon. Look at that texture. That looks so delicious. My 2-year-old son loves peanut butter. He's never had peanut butter fudge, and I can't wait to give him a taste of this. Gonna pour that into my prepared baking dish. I'm gonna slide this in right next to my Speculaas dough, and we're ready for our third recipe. This next recipe is my absolute favorite holiday candy, and that is toffee. I always get a little bit nervous making toffee. My sister-in-law introduced me to making it years ago, just before I was married, and I've definitely thrown some batches in the trash. It is a little bit finicky. So I usually make it just once a year, which is infrequent enough that even though I've made it many times, I always have that feeling that something could go wrong. So here we go. I think this is my day. I will mention that toffee, mostly flavor-wise, relies on butter and sugar. Yes, there's a few other things in there, but it's really a butter sugar candy. And so when I make a recipe that relies on just a few ingredients for flavor, I try to use the very best of those ingredients I can get. So for the sugar, I'll be using my Azure Standard organic sugar. I switched to this maybe 2 years ago, and it's less processed than the average sugar you'll find on your grocery store shelves, which does make for a different flavor, and I love it. Haven't been eating much lately. I think I mentioned in previous videos I'm off sugar, but it retains, you can see it's a little bit golden because it's less processed. It retains a little bit of that molasses undertone that comes from pure sugar cane. So I'll be using that. And then for butter, I'm getting low on grass-fed butter and I'm doubling this recipe. So I'm gonna use half grass-fed and half conventional butter. Let's give this a try. I'm gonna start off with low heat because I'm doubling the recipe. I'll use 4 whole sticks of butter. Look at that color difference. You can see the difference with the grass-fed and the grain-fed. There's a lot of flavor in that golden bar. Of course, you can make this recipe with any variety of butter and sugar. Not trying to overwhelm, just trying to share the things I've learned and loved. My cup measure is still full of peanut butter, so I'll add in 4 half cups. And I'm adding a half cup water. Like I said, heating low and slow is important here. The key in the beginning is to get all those sugar granules dissolved without a lot of sugar splashing up onto the sides. If you've got sugar granules up on the sides of your pot, you can use a wet pastry brush to knock them down. Or if you don't have a wet pastry brush, just a dampened paper towel, whatever you have. But sugar crystals on the side that then touch the mixture can keep it from properly turning to a smooth candy. You can see it's starting to come to a light boil. And now it passes through a number of phases where the color changes from golden to a light brown to a darker brown. If you have a candy thermometer, once the mixture is boiling, you'll want to put that candy thermometer in, making sure that the tip doesn't touch the bottom of the pan, because that will give you a false reading. We're aiming to get to 305, 310 degrees, the hard crack stage for candy. I don't have a candy thermometer, so I keep an eye on the color, and when I think it's close, I'll drop some of the mixture into a cold glass of water, and I'll show you what that should look like to confirm hard crack stage. As it gets darker, the texture changes a bit. You can see how it sort of leaves a line behind as I stir it. I think it's getting closer to that hard crack stage. I'm gonna try the hard crack test because I think we're getting close. It might be a little too soon. So I'm gonna drop a spoonful of this into cold water, and what I wanna see is that it holds the shape of the strings that were dropped in, and those strings break in a brittle kind of lollipop way. So I'm gonna drop a few bits in. You see they've held their shape. Now if I touch them, they are brittle. Well, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. As I was doing that hard crack test, the mixture burned. It does not have the right color, and it smells a bit burned. I'm gonna do another batch this afternoon. I will film that and I will get it right. All right, we're getting back to the Speculaas. That Speculaas dough has had plenty of time to cool in the fridge now. I'm ready to roll it out and cut out my cookies. I wanna show you these molds. So like I said, this uses Springerle molds. Springerle is a German cookie, and if you look at this mold, it's very detailed. This is a nativity mold. Historically, Springerle cookies were tied to Christian Christmas. So you will see a lot of molds associated with that, but if that doesn't resonate with you, don't worry. There are a lot of beautiful Springerle molds that also feature nature type designs. And this was a new mold for me last year, and I haven't gotten to use it yet. So I'm gonna cut out half nativity scenes and half pine cones, and I'm eager to see how these look. I'm gonna use a silicone baking mat just to save my table from those cookie cutters. I don't want it to get cut up. So I'm putting down a little bit of flour. And I'll dust my rolling pin as well. Because the design is so intricate, I'm gonna brush the inside of it with a pastry brush dipped in flour so that it releases well and all those little crevices are able to release the dough. Then I give it a very firm press. And once it's released, then I'll cut it out. That is a success. That's the type of detail I want to be able to see in the cookie. Isn't that beautiful? I've used up about half of my dough, and it's given me 1.5 dozen of the nativity cookies. And so now I'm going to switch over to my new pine cone cookie. I forgot to mention before, if you're interested in these Springerle molds, I've been getting them from Ginger House, and I've been very happy with them. They have a lot of nice detail in them, and they're super durable. So I'm gonna start making a round of these pine cone ones. It is important when you use multiple molds to keep the cookies on sheets of just the same variety. So I will start a new cookie sheet for this one because the different sizes and designs will mean different bake times. I love my new pine cone mold. There they are. So these and the nativity cookies are gonna go into the freezer for an hour. They need to freeze so that they can retain their shape and their detail when they're baked. The cookies have been in the freezer for an hour, so this design is now set and I'm ready to put them into the oven. The oven is set to 325. And as soon as we get them in, we're gonna turn it down to 220. And these will bake for about 50 minutes. The last recipe we're gonna make today is some homemade marshmallows. This is a tradition for me. Every year I put some of these in my husband's stocking because he loves marshmallows. And I usually put a different flavor in the marshmallows each year. So I use different extracts to kind of make something that I couldn't as easily buy at the store. I have learned after 10 years of marriage that it's actually more fun for him if he gets to pick what the flavor is and he just anticipates having it than it is if I try to surprise him. So last night I asked what flavor marshmallow he wants this year, and it's gonna be coconut. And I'm gonna dip these also in a chocolate dip at the end. So coconut marshmallows dipped in chocolate. I use Ina Garten's recipe for this one. I love seeing marshmallow come together. It looks so cool. And my daughter might be assisting me with some of these, so if you see some tiny hands, I've got a little helper in the kitchen. Into the mixing bowl, we're gonna put half a cup of cold water. Ooh, very careful, good. And then the recipe calls for 3 packages of gelatin. A package is about 2.5 teaspoons. I buy my gelatin in bulk from Azure Standard, so we're gonna make that 4.5. I'll round up to 5 teaspoons. Do you want to give it a little stir?
Yes, please.
Okay. Stir that around to allow the gelatin to bloom while we make the sugar syrup. Can you make sure you mix in that lump? Good. To this pot, we're going to add 1.5 cups sugar. And I'll add a cup of corn syrup. I love that they offer this measuring tool because I do not feel like cleaning out a measuring cup full of syrup. Put half of it in. Check on it in a minute. You don't want to pour?
A little bit.
And let it go. You're on your own. Use both hands.
I want Mama to help.
Oh, okay. Let's see where we're at. So, there we go. Is it in? Yep. And half a cup of water.
But then I set it out.
Okay, let me explain something now, okay? I'm going to turn the heat to low until this sugar is dissolved. Then I'll turn it up to high, and I'm aiming to reach 240 degrees for soft ball stage. I'm going to drop some in. I'm going to see if it turns into something kind of gooey that I can gather into a ball.
Nope.
Actually, it is. Look at that.
Let me see. Whoa.
Gathered up into a ball. So it's ready. I'm going to turn it off. All right, I'm going to drizzle slowly my syrup mixture into that gelatin that I dissolved in water. So I've got my whisk attachment on, and I've got that gelatin dissolved in water. And now I'm going to slowly incorporate this. After 15 minutes of mixing, when the mixture has reached that marshmallow-like consistency, a pan is prepared by dusting it with powdered sugar. So the easiest way to do that is to put some in a sieve and just sprinkle that over top. And that's what keeps the mixture from sticking to the bottom of the pan. Then the marshmallow goes into the pan and is topped off with another layer of powdered sugar. While the marshmallows are cooling, I've got another round of Speculaas in the oven. The fudge is complete, so I'm ready to take one more shot at that toffee. I can't believe I burned it. Anyhow, everything that I did was correct right up until the end when I took it off too late. So I won't show you the whole process again, but I will show you what this looks like right before I take it off the heat, and hopefully we've got it right this time. So this is what it looks like. It is ready to come off the heat. Now that it's off the heat, I'm going to put in some vanilla. Which always makes it sputter. And then I'll get it into a pan.
She put chocolate in the topping. I definitely want topping. I definitely we'll put down the chocolate chips then.
The last of the cookies are out of the oven. This has been a longer day than I expected, but I'm really pleased with what I've accomplished today. I know that my kids are gonna enjoy this, and I'm gonna give some away to siblings and nieces and nephews too at Christmas. So let me show you what we've made. Here are the Speculaas. They did lose some of their definition when they baked. It's not quite as easy. There's one that maybe you can tell a little better. Oh wow, that's really not coming through on the camera. It's a little better in person than it is on the camera. But it's hard to see the definition of that nativity. If I move over to this pine cone design, it's a much more simple design, and that comes through more clearly. I love the smell of them though. I can tell it's a flavor I'm gonna like better than Springerle. Here's the peanut butter fudge, which I will cut up and wrap tomorrow. Here's our toffee with toasted almonds. I'm gonna give my daughter a sample of this tonight because I promised her. The rest I'll break up tomorrow. And then here's our coconut marshmallow. And this needs to sit out overnight. That's how it dries out and solidifies and becomes less sticky. And then tomorrow I will cut it up and dip it into chocolate. And those will get wrapped up as well. Great.
I like it.
All right. All right, I am back and ready to finish off this candy project. The last step is just to cut up and wrap up all the candies and put them in gift boxes for my siblings and their families. So the cookies, as I mentioned, didn't quite hold their shape as well as they do with the Springerle recipe, but I like this Speculaas recipe. The pine cone definitely retained detail better than the nativity scene, but still there's something to each. So I thought as a last step, because I've never tried this before and it always looks magical when they do it on the Great British Baking Show, I want to try dusting it with a bit of gold spray. So for the pine cone, I just wanted the pine cone itself to be gold. So I just cut out a piece of parchment paper, folded it in half and cut out a little semicircle. And I'm going to cover that cookie so that only the pine cone itself is exposed. I'll try spraying it with a little edible gold spray and see how it turns out. All right, so I'll cover this up and then give it a little spray. Oh, I thought this was a sort of edible spray paint, but it's actually a gold dust. Oh, it's pretty. It kind of balloons out. Okay, so it's definitely not isolated to the pine cone. It got all over, but I do think it's pretty. Here, let me move this so you can get a look at it against the mat. It just gives it a little bit of shimmer. I love that. I'm gonna do that to the rest of the pine cones. This one came out especially clear. I'm liking that one. That's great. Here's the finished product. So if you like to bake and you haven't played with Springerle Molds and gold dust, I recommend it. It really is pretty gratifying. A little bit time consuming, but gratifying. And next up is the peanut butter fudge. You can see my family's made a little progress on it already, which is just fine. We have a lot here. They told me the flavor is good. I'm just gonna lift it out of the pan. Look at that. That's why I love parchment paper. Peel down the sides. And it's ready to cut. Next up is the toffee. You can see my family really did some damage to this one. My daughter especially liked this. This one, there's just no precision to cutting it up in my experience. You cut it and it just kind of breaks into shards as it will. So I'll do my best to just get them in the right size so that they can fit into gift boxes. And again, because of the parchment paper, I'll be able to lift it right out. You can see it's got that chocolate and almond on top, and then there's that beautiful toffee color. That's the color you're aiming for. And finally, the last candy to cut up and take care of is the marshmallow. Also has been sampled by my family. This is the only one I didn't use parchment paper for, so this might be a little bit more sticky to get out. Let's see how we did. I have one more step to complete with the marshmallows. I want to dip them in some melted chocolate. I'd initially thought that I want to dip all of them, but there's so many marshmallows. I think I'll do a fraction of them, and I'll put 1 or 2 dipped marshmallows in each box, and people can have with chocolate or without. So I've got my melting wafers. I'm going to microwave them in 15-second increments and stir until they're melted. Look at my lineup of treats. This has all the holiday cheer for me. Let me show you the full spread. There are the Speculaas, peanut butter fudge, toffee, and coconut marshmallows dipped in chocolate. Thanks for spending some time in the kitchen with me, making holiday treats. I enjoyed putting some marshmallows in John's stocking, keeping up with our traditions. I set some candies aside for my family for this week, and still had plenty left to box up as presents for my siblings and their families. I hope you're enjoying some peaceful time with loved ones in this holiday season. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.